Charlie released his first mock draft.
Yeah.
Was it last night,
today? The first half of the first
mock draft. You covered the lottery edition. You covered the first 16 picks, the teams that did not make the playoffs.
Basically, this is what I would have done had I not been on vacation for 2 weeks right after the lottery.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kick it off with it because I do plan to do another full mock draft of the first round at least, maybe the second round. I'll see if I decide to go that far. But I want to do that in the immediate lead up to the draft. Maybe 4 or 5 days before the draft, maybe even sooner to the actual draft buzzer going off and us beginning the selection process on, June 29th, 28th?
I think it's the 28th and 29th.
28th and 29th. So I'll do another one closer. But I wanted to get one out here just because I wanted to give everyone an idea of sort of how I see, based on what I've read, based on what I've heard, how I'm assuming the first round might shape up and who might be available around the range where the Flyers pick. So I wanted to get that out there, and today is the first 16 picks, as you said, and then tomorrow, the first 16 picks, the one today, that's available to everyone. Tomorrow, when I do the back half of the first round, obviously the Flyers do have a second first-round pick. That will be for diehards only. I'm getting back on the writing saddle. It's been a few weeks, but we're gonna pump out, I think, at least 3 articles, if not more, this week, and we're getting back into the swing of things. Last week it was the jet lag. It was getting back used to the shows. It was starting to finish up all the research so that I felt comfortable writing these articles. Now it's time to get the content back on allphly.com.
If there's one thing you can count, Charlie's not going to slack. Here's the thing, kids. Maybe I'm going to throw a show together that might not be my best work. Charlie is always going to bring it. And, of course, if you want that second half of Charlie's mock draft, become a diehard, damn it. We're not going to go through 1 through 16 today because, go to allphly.com, read it for yourselves. That would be cool for all of us. I do want to know about some of is there anything that you may have surprised yourself or anything you've had a ton of pushback on? Because I think the thing that I noticed first more than anything, you got my guy going to the Flyers.
Got your guy at 12, Carter Yakimchuk.
And Cole Eiserman, one of the I always, there's the guys whose names we know and guys whose names we learned during the draft process. Cole Eiserman was one of the players whose names we knew. Not in your top 16.
At one time, he was viewed, I think, as a consensus top 3, if not top 2. He was kind of viewed as the other guy, aside from Macklin Celebrini. Look, everything I've heard is that there is legitimate possibility that he could slide. And first, it looked like that slide was, maybe he slides out of the top 10. Now, I don't think it's out of the realm possibility he slides out of the lottery, not because he's a bad prospect, but because I'm just getting the sense, number one, that there are other forwards that have significantly more helium, guys like Beckett Seneca, guys like Jet Luchenko. There are guys that are going up, and it just seems like, I think Eiserman is getting nitpicked a little bit. I think teams are... They've watched him for so long. They've determined what his weaknesses are, whereas some of the other guys, like say somebody like Seneca, who is having or had the big playoff run for Oshawa in the OHL playoffs, you start finding reasons to like them. Whereas with Eiserman, I think teams are finding reasons to not like him. I personally have Eiserman in my top 10. However, and I've said this on the show, and we'll get into this when we get into the wingers, even though he's in my top 10, I think there are other players that I also think have a chance to be there at 12, who I like more than Eiserman, which is why I'm not of the opinion that, if Eiserman's there, you got to take him. It's it depends on who else is there. Maybe if other guys are gone, I would be fine with an Eiserman pick. But I don't think it's crazy to think that Eiserman will slide. I don't think he's going to slide out of the first round. That's insane. But I could see him sliding to the late teens, into that 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 range. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, given everything I've read and given where the winds seem to be blowing.
I'll tell you, when I see, that trade we saw made with the Blackhawks the other day, where it's, why are we're really swapping picks? This is sort of a day of kind of trade,
they moved
right?
up from 20 to 18. It was an odd trade to happen a month before the draft.
That trade happens when the team at 15 is on the board, you know?
Yeah.
You're like, my guy might be falling here. Do you think that might have, At 18, if the cutoff, like we thought, was at 14, but now some guys are starting to move up a little, it's like, ooh, maybe I should get into the late teens and see if I can steal an Eiserman or something like that.
I talk about this in the mock draft that's coming out tomorrow, the one for diehards only, because it was very interesting seeing them make that trade now. And I can only think of two possible explanations why Chicago did it. Explanation one, which I find to be the more unlikely, because it would require a lot of inside info, is Chicago is confident, very confident, that their guy is going to be there at 18, and they're also very confident that that guy is not going to be there at 20. Like, they know for a fact that Vegas loves whoever their guy is, who they think is going to be there at 18, because maybe he's a guy who isn't necessarily on everybody's board, but he's a guy they love, but they heard from someone reliable that Vegas or the Islanders, the team they traded with, also loves him, and they want to jump those guys now. Might as well do it now since we have the intel. That seems unlikely, because that would require a lot of intel to be that confident. The other explanation...
You need like 19 teams preferred player.
Yes. It just... I guess it's possible, just seems unlikely. The other explanation, and this I suspect is what it is that Chicago is betting that one or two guys are going to slip, and they are betting that if they were to wait until draft day, the cost would be higher, because then it's not you're trading up to 18. It's you're trading for Cole Eiserman.
You're trading for a guy.
And then suddenly teams can ask for more. So their bet is someone's going to slip to 18 who shouldn't slip, and we are going to get that pick by trading early cheaper than if we waited until draft day, until there was a certainty that that guy's going to be there. It's an intriguing strategy. I don't know if I quite agree with it, but if, for example, a Cole Eiserman slips to 18, then suddenly it looks like a brilliant strategy, because yes, if Cole Eiserman is there at 18 and the Blackhawks really, really like him, and they were actually sitting at 20, they didn't make this trade, yeah, it probably will cost more than the 2 picks they had to trade to move up a month before the draft, because that is a player that multiple teams will probably be trying to trade up to get. So I don't know how it's going to play out, but that's my assumption as to why Chicago made that deal early. We'll see if it pays off for him.
We will. And I know, like, what I hear of, oh, yeah, man, like Cole Eiserman. And again, it's a result of a lot of, listen, there's players whose names we know, and he's one of those guys, but Cole Eiserman might slip. We do have second first rounder. Would be nice, but also it looks like that's going to be at like 31 or 32.
Yeah, with the way Florida looks,
30
especially.
Early, yeah.
Although I guess that series is only 2-2. The Rangers, with the way Shesterkin's playing, they could very easily still steal that series. They have home ice. They have 2 of the final 3 games at home. So even though it feels like Florida has been the better team in that series, it's 2-2.
It is.
And the Rangers have the better goalie. So maybe the Flyers will get the the 28th or 29th or 30th pick rather than the 31st or 32nd.
I think because of record, it'll be 30 or more or higher. I'm not sure. I'm not positive.
I think it depends
Can it be 29?
It depends on who loses, because I believe Florida has the better record than Edmonton, but they have the worst record than Dallas. So it would depend on who would lose on the other side, whether they would be 29 or 30.
My assumption has always been Dallas is winning, so that's what I've committed
to.
But
again, that series could go the other way too.
Absolutely.
It's only 2-1. But yeah, so in my mock draft, I know a lot of people, especially online, seems like they're very, very high on Cole Eiserman. Again, I think it's the familiarity. He's been talked about for so much. We'll get to him a little bit later. If you're watching on YouTube, we have a little, PTI style subheading. I don't know what you even call that, an overlay, something like that, that shows what we're going to be talking about in the show. So right now we're talking about the mock draft. After that, we will be talking about the top tier wingers in the draft and so on. It's just a new little addition for our YouTube live viewers and I guess after the fact viewers. We're just going to experiment with some things, some graphics in the summer to try to make this a better viewing experience for everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.